Momentarily. It's nice to see everyone today. Okay, thank you. If you would please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Senator Funky Fromeyer. Senator Gardler. Senator Howell. Senator Maiden. Senator Nunn. Senator Thomas. Senator Wilson. Senator Wise. Senator Yates. Representative Baker. Representative Chester Burton. Representative Dotson. Representative Pfister.
Here.
Representative Fugit. Representative Grossberg. Representative Grossel. Representative Hodgson.
Here.
Representative Kulkarni. Representative Lawrence. Representative Lehman.
Here.
Representative Lewis. Representative Marzian. Representative McPherson.
Here.
Representative Moore.
Here.
Representative Pollock.
Here.
Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Present.
Representative Tate. Representative Thompson. Representative Truitt. Representative Watkins. Representative Wesley. Representative Whitaker. Representative White. Representative Wilson. Representative Witten.
Here.
Co-Chair Wheeler. Co-Chair Gordon.
Yes.
Co-Chair King.
Present.
All right, seems we do have a quorum. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the August minutes. Motion by Representative Pfister, chair by Representative McPherson. Okay, if the, we'll go with the agenda as printed. So if the Kentucky Small Business Update by the Chamber of Commerce, if you'll proceed to the table and you may introduce yourselves and begin.
Well, good afternoon, Chair Gordon, Chair King, Chair Wheeler. Thank you for having us here today. My name is John Hughes. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, which proudly represents thousands of businesses across the Commonwealth, from large employers to the smallest local entrepreneurs who form the backbone of our communities. Kentucky's economy is experiencing real momentum. Over the past several years, the Kentucky General Assembly has enacted pro-growth policies that have made our state more competitive. Lowering income taxes, modernizing regulation, and prioritizing workforce development have all given employers the confidence to invest and expand here at home. On behalf of our members, I want to thank you for those efforts. They are truly making a difference. At the Kentucky Chamber, we have 7 policy councils that help set our legislative agenda each session. Each session, we host a small business day at the Capitol, and we look forward to continuing to do that even with the pending remodel that we're seeing. This year with me, I have our new incoming chair, Amit Patel, to speak on what he is experiencing as a small business owner. Amit.
Thanks for that intro. Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair Gordon, for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Amit Patel, and I serve as the CEO at Thoroughbred Hospitality Group. I'm also honored to be stepping in, as John mentioned, into a new role as the incoming chair of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce's Small Business Council. Both of these roles give me a unique perspective, not only as someone operating hotels across Kentucky, but also as an advocate for the thousands of small businesses that are truly the backbone of our great Commonwealth's economy. At THG, we are proud of the foundation on which this organization stands, one built upon a strong tradition of hospitality and a firm guarantee of excellence. Our mission is simple. It's to ensure that every guest who walks through our doors feels valued, inspired, and connected. From the moment we opened our first property to today, in cities like Lexington, Somerset, Georgetown, Shepherdsville, Nicholasville, and beyond, our commitment has been unwavering. Whether it's the comfort of a well-appointed guest room, the warmth of a friendly staff member, or the quality and attention behind every amenity, every detail matters, because our guests' experience matters. But being a small business owner, I also see the challenges facing our industry and our workforce every day. We're feeling the broader effects of a depleting workforce pipeline. Recruiting and retaining staff has become increasingly difficult, and without strong solutions around workforce development, small businesses like mine will continue to struggle to grow, innovate, and deliver the experiences our guests deserve. One of the most pressing issues regarding the workforce is the lack of adequate childcare resources. Far too often, talented employees are forced to leave the workforce or scale back their hours simply because they cannot find or afford safe, reliable childcare for their children. For a service-driven industry like hospitality, where people are the heart of what we do, this is not just a personal burden for families, it's a direct workforce issue. Another major challenge we face is an increase in insurance costs, which is becoming a trend that we have recently seen. Hotels, by their very nature, are large, complex properties with significant exposure. In recent years, natural disasters and catastrophic weather events, floods, storms, and other severe conditions have contributed to a surge in property claims across the country, driving premiums through the roof for everyone. At the same time, liability risks are a constant reality in our industry. On top of all of this, inflation has significantly driven up the cost of doing business. The price of building materials, replacement parts, and skilled labor has increased sharply, which means that every repair or rebuild is far more expensive than what it was just a few years ago. I would like to give a friendly reminder that hotels play a crucial role in broader economic development. They generate taxes that further contribute to local and state coffers, supporting essential public services. Moreover, the presence of quality hotels is often a prerequisite for attracting conventions, conferences, and other major events, which bring even more visitors and revenue to our great Commonwealth. This interconnectedness underscores why a thriving hotel industry is not just good for hoteliers, but for the entire Commonwealth's economy and its residents. As we face challenges, it is so important to have leaders such as you all that focus on policies that alleviate the strain small businesses could potentially face. I want to take a moment to thank the General Assembly for the pro-business policies you have enacted in recent years. Creating a competitive tax environment and reducing the personal income tax has created more discretionary income, and the work has not gone unnoticed. These reforms have given small businesses like mine the flexibility and the confidence to keep investing in this great Commonwealth's future. Because of this supportive environment you all have cultivated, and in hopes it continues, I'm hopeful to announce that we will soon be undertaking a multi-million-dollar expansion right here in the capital city, bringing new jobs, new opportunities, and renewed energy to the state capital. Thank you. I'll defer it back to John.
Yep. Thank you, Meet. Expanding child care resources is not only a family issue, it is a workforce issue. We cannot also ignore the housing shortage that is limiting Kentucky's growth potential. Employers tell us even when they recruit new workers, too often those workers cannot find affordable housing near the job sites. In this upcoming session, the Kentucky Chamber will be prioritizing work on child care legislation. Our goal is to strengthen the network services across the state and address some of these workforce challenges. We will also be working on housing. Our goal is to support policies to increase the supply of the housing across the state. We know that the Housing Task Force has been working very hard on this the past 2 interims. Kentucky is a good place to do business, and with the right policies in place, we can continue to attract capital and talent. Please know if you have any legislation or issues that you're working on that can impact small businesses, we're happy to work with our Small Business Council and our new Small Business Chair. In closing, the Chamber urges the General Assembly to stay on the course on policies that strengthen our workforce and economy, while also addressing these barriers that hold us back: child care shortages, workforce participation, and housing availability. Together, we can assure Kentucky remains a state where businesses grow, communities thrive, and families prosper. Thank you for your leadership and opportunity to share the perspective from the Kentucky business community, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very well, and thank you both for being here. And certainly the challenges that you're facing in your industry is also the same that we are seeing across many industries. And for the Chamber, I'm glad to see that you're spending your resources in those areas, because it does coincide with the work that we're already doing this interim. And so these are things that our constituents need, and the state needs to continue on its economic trajectory. So if we have any questions, I see Senator Funky Fromeyer, you may proceed.
Yes, thank you for sharing about your business, Amit. Do you, as an employer, offer an employee benefit around child care?
So I'm glad you brought that up. So as part of our natural growth process, we only started in 2018. So we're talking behind closed doors to offer that, along with some of the other benefits that we already offer, and improving upon those, such as health, vision, the whole 401k. So that is something that we are talking about, offering some sort of stipend to alleviate some of those pressures that our workforce is facing. In all honesty, that's it's easier to keep and retain an employee and keep them happier versus go out, train, and it's a trial and error process. So no, that's a great point, and I'm happy to share that we are looking at that option.
You may.
And of course, you also mentioned the cost of healthcare and such. Do you have specifics that perhaps we could look at differently? Unfortunately, we found from a presentation given to us last week that once Obamacare came out in 2013, our workforce participation declined rapidly. So I believe that our employer can be the solution to offer more robust health care and cash flow, a paycheck.
Right.
What can we do here in Kentucky that might remedy some of that disproportionate lack of workforce participation?
Great question. I will share with you our costs associated with our healthcare plans have tripled over the last 3 years. It started off great, however, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to maintain it. However, we're firmly committed to our employees and our staff, but we understand that that's the nature of that business. Now, to answer your question about what we could do, I mean, that's a fantastic question. I mean, for such as, we're a small business ourselves, we don't necessarily qualify for some of these larger plans, and the participation because of these rising costs have actually gone down in these healthcare plans. So again, part of our quarterly meetings, coming up in Q4 is to address how we can better better obtain some of these healthcare plans for our staff. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks for the questions.
Senator Boswell.
Thank you. So I'm a small businessman. I understand some of the challenges you're facing. So not being specific, but as a business, if we're making money, if we're doing good, that affects our ability to be able to support organizations in our community, nonprofit organizations, other things, charities and things of that nature. How would you say in general this business climate has affected your ability to be able to participate in that type of help to our communities?
Yeah, I mean, charitable work is instilled in us from day one. In our business, we are more than just a TV, a bed, and a shower. We're a community partner. We are building assets that are supposed to be there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. It's in our values to be able to further and benefit the surrounding communities in which we operate. That's one of our pillars. We're a firm believer of being a community partner, whether it's being active at the chamber level, being donating our time or even resources. I can give a great example of one of our hotels in Shepherdsville. They go above and beyond, and they do back to school drives every year. More importantly, we just got recognized for one of our hotels in Somerset. Got recognized at a national level for putting together a needs drive and packed up a U-Haul and shipped it over to North Carolina as a result of the devastation that happened there. So yeah, of course it's a part of what we do.
Thank you both for being here, and we look forward to working with you as we approach session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have some people from the Cabinet for Economic Development, Mr. David Brogg and Mr. Matt Wingate, to give us an update on the Kentucky Angel Investment Tax Credit Program. And if you would both introduce yourselves, you may begin whenever you're all set.
All right, I'm Matt Wingate. I'm the General Counsel at the Cabinet. Thank you, Chair Gordon, for inviting us. Thank you to staff for the clarity in the request. It makes it a lot easier for David and his team to prepare their presentations. So anytime we have an opportunity to discuss our programs that are legislatively provided to us. We love to have those opportunities, so thanks for having us today.
Echoing Matt, thank you all for giving us the opportunity to talk about the Angel Tax Credit Program. We're going to try to provide a little bit of context and framework for how this fits into the other innovation.
Excuse me, could you make sure that your mic is on and move it just a little bit closer? All right.
Sorry about that.
No, that's much better. Thank you.
So I'll jump right in. My name's David Brock. I'm the Executive Director for KY Innovation. We are the division within the cabinet that supports entrepreneurship broadly across the state and with a focus on technology startups, innovation-driven economic development. The presentation order today, again, we're going to give a little bit of context and go over some of the other programming and how the Angel Tax Credit fits into those, and then happy to take your questions about the program. Starting off, I'm going to just highlight the Innovation Hubs program. So this is really the front door for entrepreneurship, providing mentorship, coaching, a broad set of services and connections to capital, connections to customers. This is a program that, as you can see, is statewide. There are 6 offices across the state that are networked and are chosen through a competitive RFP process. We've been really intentional over the last year in trying to make sure that these are hubs in the truest sense. They are not just focused on specifically and only on the high growth potential businesses. They're truly connected to any service that's available to any business in the state of Kentucky. And so how they interact with those businesses and then refer them to the services they need is something that is important for us to track as well. But you can see here over the last 5 years, over 2,600 jobs created, over 15,000 entrepreneurs served, and over $600 million in capital raised, and that's by companies that have been directly assisted by the hubs in getting that investment. I'm going to also highlight some of our programs, again, that are directly funding companies, and we appreciate the support for the state level programs that we operate from the legislature. The SBIR STTR Matching Funds Program, there's a lot of acronyms I'm about to hit you with, I apologize, but this is the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Program. So every federal agency has a portion of their budget that is dedicated to product and technology development among small businesses. And so that's in the form of either grants or contracts for the businesses to address a particular problem. Kentucky was the first state in the United States to have a matching funds program back in 2006, and over the years we have awarded over 150 companies, and you can see that in addition to the state funding, that has leveraged $173 million in federal awards, and they've received $192 million in private follow-on investment. Kentucky Enterprise Fund is our state-sponsored venture capital fund for early-stage companies. That is managed by Kentucky Science and Technology Corporation and their venture arm, Keyhorse Capital. That has been a vital source of early-stage capital for early-stage technology companies since about 2002. You can see over 550 companies have been funded, about $59 million in investment, and then $2.5 billion of follow-on investment, and that covers the entire continuum of higher scale investment from Series A through mezzanine all the way to exit. And then I wanted to touch on a couple of federal programs that we also have that directly impact young companies. The SSBCI program, that is a U.S. Department of Treasury program that was relaunched in 2021. Our programs came online in 2023. Kentucky's allotment is about $117 million over 10 years, and that's tranched depending on how the money is allocated and rolled out. And Kentucky has both lending support programs, the collateral support and lender participation, as well as venture capital programs. And there's about 30% put into the lending support and 70 for venture capital. You can see there that There's been about $8 million in support through lending projects, and that has resulted in about $28 million in investment in those projects. For venture capital, thus far, 55 companies have received investment, and there's been $36 million in matched investment. And what matched investment means is the federal dollar has to be matched 1-to-1 at the initial investment level. We are currently at about 2-to-1. So for all $36 million of investment have been matched about 2-to-1 in private investment at the initial stage of the investment. And then the State Trade Expansion Program, or STEP, this has been around since we are on our 12th year, hopefully about to start our 13th year. And these are relatively small grants for companies that want to get into exporting, want to access international markets. For about $3.7 million over that time period, 240 businesses have been awarded, and they track ROI based on sales as a result of everything from trade shows to foreign market sales visits. And we have been at about 14-to-1 since 2007 for sales as a result of people receiving this grant and getting to undertake those activities. So again, wanted to provide that for you just so you have a little bit of an understanding of where the Angel program serves a need. These programs primarily directly fund businesses in early stage startup growth. The Angel Tax Credit Program, the purpose is to encourage capital investment. So this program is an incentive for the investor. And you can see this is taken directly from statute, but meant to encourage capital investment, create new jobs, and foster the development of new products and technologies by encouraging individual investors to make investments in innovative Kentucky small businesses with high growth potential. So I'm going to move on and just offer an overview of the current program. I'll get into details about some of the requirements and how businesses and investors interact with the program. The big thing to know about the program is the level of investment that is incentivized. So potential credits amounts are equal to 25% of investment into non-enhanced county businesses and 40% in enhanced counties. Program caps, $3 million per calendar year in Angel tax credits are available. There's a $200,000 limit per calendar year for an individual investor, and then $1 million of cumulative credits received for investments in a single company. And so that means when investors cumulatively have received $1 million for investment into a company, the company is no longer eligible to participate in the program. This is a non-refundable tax credit that is claimed against Kentucky's individual income tax, can be carried forward for 15 years, and it is transferable, which has to be handled through the Department of Revenue. The businesses are currently required to report for a 5-year period after they have received inclusion in the program. So I'm going to move on and talk about, again, the business, the investor, and the investment. Those are the three sort of components of certification for the Angel Investment Tax Credit Program. First and foremost, the qualified small business has to be certified. These are the criteria: no more than 100 full-time employees, net worth of $10 million or less, or net income over the last 2 years of $3 million. And then the location requirement is 50% of its assets, operations, and employees located in Kentucky. Again, this is the investor cap cannot have exceeded $1 million in credits for investors as a business. And then the business must be engaged in any one of these qualifying knowledge-based activities, and this is directly from the statute: bioscience, environmental, energy and technology, health and human development, IT and communications, material sciences and advanced manufacturing, and other new economy knowledge-based activity. be happy to go over what that means if anybody has questions later. Qualified investors, no more than 20% ownership, not employed by the business, an individual natural person certified as qualified investor, must be accredited at the date of investment, seeking a financial return for legitimate investments, and is not closely related. This, I should mention, the qualified investor and investment are both part of the same application. So when an investor intends to make an investment, they submit the same application, and their investor status and investment are both considered. The investment itself is approved by KEDFA, the same way that other tax credit incentive programs are approved through our cabinet. Cash investment of at least $10,000 in equity or near equity. And then the investment itself must be made within 80 calendar days or the end of the year, whichever comes first. Here are a few numbers about the program since its inception. You can see 317 businesses have been certified. They've attracted at least 117 of those have attracted at least one investment. Total investors 445, making 750 total investments, and then $57.2 million of investment that have received $19 million in credits awarded. Since reporting started in 2021, 373 new jobs have been reported by the businesses. I did want to point to a few businesses, just give you all some object lessons, live specimens of businesses that utilize the angel investment tax credit. So these are good examples of companies that had received investment recently and have been able to utilize the credit to incentivize investment directly. PowerTech Water was a small startup company, and when they started the program in about 2015, they had a few employees, started to get investment. Now they have over 20 in a manufacturing operation in Lexington, but they have been able to use it at every stage of their growth. They have not hit the employee limit yet, and so they are continuing to utilize the program. Black Box Energy Systems in Bath County. This is a relatively new company, and they have used the angel tax credit. Their investors have used the angel tax credit for, I believe, every investment that they've received thus far. It's been very influential in gaining investment, but also has been part of their investment strategy. And then Canball, another very young company that utilized the tax credit for their first investments and are continuing to utilize the program. And they would not have been able to receive some of the investments early on without the angel investment tax credit. So I know that was a lot. Open the floor for questions, and be happy to answer anything you want to know about the program.
Yes, thank you both for being here. And again, I just wanted to highlight this since this is such a nice resource for our small businesses and encouraging growth in all those different stages. So our first question comes from Senator Nunn.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Go back to slide number 5, if you don't mind. It's where you have the vertical markets on there. I think it's slide number 5. Yeah, right there. Oh, right there. Back one more. Right, yeah.
This one. Yeah.
Does the Kentucky Enterprise Fund have the same restrictions on which verticals it can fund? And if so, do those align with what our university capabilities or what they're researching?
Yes, that was the original intent. It came from the same Innovation Act statute.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned, Mr. Wendy, good to see you. I know we've met about a few of these types of things. What's the main difference between an enhanced and a non-enhanced county, if you could inform the committee of that?
Well, it's a little bit of a tricky there's a specific statute that has the methodology for differentiating between a non-enhanced and enhanced. The legislature, in I believe 2021, revised that statute to also pull in counties that had been impacted by disasters, and that portion of it had largely, prior to that revision, been confined to the more distressed areas as under the methodology. I don't have it memorized, but David's got the statute in front of him. But what we've seen through that, and it is a well-intended and worthwhile thing to do, is that the differentiation between some of those distressed counties has brought in more enhanced through this disaster relief declaration.
Okay, and I guess
there's over 80 now. It was hovering around, I think, 60 something prior to.
so we now have about 80 enhanced counties versus 60. Is
Maybe no, excuse me, 90.
90.
yeah.
Okay,
My math's off.
and I guess as far as the investments that have been made, how many have been made outside, or let's just say first east of 75? Do you have any data on that?
We probably do. I don't have that number off, with me today.
I mean, can you think of any specific project whatsoever or a specific investment?
So, thank you for the question. With the reporting that we do on an annual basis to appropriations and revenue doesn't break it down that way. I mean, I can tell you an overwhelming majority of the investments and claimed credits are non-enhanced counties. The company I mentioned in Bath County is one that's outside of that area. So is the other company I mentioned, Canball, is in Auburn.
Okay.
In the western part of the state, but it would be accurate to say that a majority of the investments
Okay,
are
so I guess my question is, do you believe that these might need to be looked at to kind of redirect some more investment in the state that perhaps are struggling a little bit more? I mean, are we getting mainly investments in places where everything's already going pretty well?
I would say that a majority of the investment is happening where a lot of the activity with these kinds of companies is happening. The incentive amount is 40% for enhanced counties. It was 50% until about 2018. So that wasn't a huge drop in that amount, and I don't think that we've seen a significant difference in the amount of investment based on that. But happy to entertain, we're not policymakers, but welcome any input on anything that would help companies anywhere in the state of Kentucky. That's what we're aiming to do with a lot of our programs, and it's difficult.
Do appreciate that, and again, I'm asking as a policymaker what we can do to perhaps incentivize more investment in our rural areas. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good questions. Senator Boswell?
Thank you. Senator Wheeler covered part of my question, but it's about the enhanced. So some counties have had difficult situations come up, like one of my counties. We lost an employer, we lost 600 jobs. It caused the unemployment rate. Would that be a consideration when you talk about the enhanced and non-enhanced
Yes,
counties?
it would. They're recertified on a yearly basis, and those types of figures are taken into consideration.
And if I
Yes, sir.
sorry, you mentioned about the 373 jobs that were created. That's always good news, but I have to wonder maybe if some of those jobs might have been created in spite of this program, but we'll just say that they all were exactly the result of this. Could you just tell me of the number of businesses that you've invested in? I think you mentioned something about 240. Obviously, they're not all going to succeed. Do you have any information at all about the ones that fail, like a percentage of the number of businesses that you invested in? Thank you.
That is not something that we currently track. If a business closes during the 5-year reporting period for the purposes of the credit, the investor, if they have remaining credit, no longer receive the tax credit. But we have not tracked, and that's information that we could probably glean through Secretary of State records.
Well, my only issue is that, if it's 100%, that's great. But, I mean, if it's not, then I think, as we're as legislators, we need to know what percent of success that you're having. So I think I'd like to have that number. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
would be useful. Representative Lehman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for presenting. I'll ask, I know we have talked about this kind of specific issue, so this is a question as much for you as for awareness for the rest of the committee. And some of this, for these programs, it's come up, what exactly does 50% of employees located in Kentucky mean? Does that mean they have to live here or work here or both? We're bordered by 7 other states. Is there a working definition that you've agreed upon at the cabinet?
So you raise a really good point, and it's something that we often encounter with this program is some uncertainty over this 50% requirement. And I think that whenever you have a program that's targeted towards tech companies, and the needs are always evolving anytime you're going to have an innovation type company, understanding those needs of the companies goes into help setting good, adequate policy to figure out what are we trying to accomplish here. Density of activity, employees in Kentucky. The cabinet's policy on 50% is in the aggregate. So it considers those in relation with the operations, 100% of operations here, 100% of the intellectual property being generated here. That's good for the state. That's what ultimately builds companies. The 50% of its employees is balanced against that. But I think specifically in the matter you're referencing, part of what we do as a cabinet is if we're ever going to have any integrity in the programs that we offer and administer, we're going to have to be really good at compliance, and we pride ourselves on that. So whenever we see something come in that may say, oh, well, there might be a little bit different composition of employment here, we need to dig further and understand this company's operations, we're going to do that. But most of the time through that process, we work our way into having a deeper understanding of how they're counting their employees, where their employees are actually performing the services, whether they're paying Kentucky income tax, and we generally can work through those types of issues.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick follow-up, if you don't mind.
Very quick.
Chair. Yeah, and so I just make sure I'm understanding. So when you say 50%, you look at assets, operations, and employees altogether, and you say 50% of that. That makes you eligible. It's not 50% of each of those categories.
And in the statute, it's not listed
Yeah.
individually. It's listed as a grouping.
Okay.
So yes, that's the application that we've given to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and a follow-up by Senator, nope, he's all good. Okay, well, thank you for being here and for answering our questions and shining a light on this useful program. And I concur with the comments by Senator Boswell. I would like to know the failure rate, just so we know if this is something that we need to continue investing in. So, thank you both.
all.
Thank you all.
Okay, our last presenters of the day, we'll get a nice update from the tourism industry. If your party would come to the table and introduce yourselves, you may also begin.
Good afternoon. I'll start with my introduction. We'll follow with the panel, then swing back to me for some opening comments. I am Hank Phillips. I'm the president and CEO of the Kentucky Travel Industry Association, KTIA.
Hello, I'm Prakash Magan with Rainmaker Hospitality. We're a hotel-based company here in Kentucky.
And I'm Lori Murphy Tatum, and I am the tourism director for the city of Richmond.
And on Zoom, I'm Abby Dixon, and I'm the tourism director from the Henderson Tourist Commission.
All right. You all will enjoy in a few minutes learning why Abby is zooming in for her presentation. Chairman Gordon, thank you so much for the invitation to be here to talk about the state of Kentucky tourism and the Kentucky tourism industry. And I can declare right out of the gate that the state of tourism in Kentucky is strong. It's very strong. And before I move on, I want to thank the General Assembly and all of the members of the committee for your support over the years to help having made that so. And I also want to be clear about something. When we talk about the strength of tourism, the way we define that is in terms of the benefits that tourism provides to the people of Kentucky and the communities of Kentucky. And examples of that, over $14 billion in economic impact from tourism. The support of nearly 100,000 jobs by tourism and the contribution of $1 billion in local and state tax revenue. Those are ways in which the tourism and the tourism industry benefit Kentuckians. Another way, and a very important way, has to do with quality of life, where those same experiences we provide to visitors are readily accessible by the residents of Kentucky. And also with quality of life, that's a huge consideration by businesses in decisions to relocate to Kentucky, and by families considering moving to Kentucky and working here. So those are the benefits and elements of the strength of this industry. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the panel, who will talk with you more specifically. These are folks who work hard day in and day out to maintain that strength and the benefits that accrue to the folks who live here in the state.
So again, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members, for allowing us to be here to share our experiences today. Again, my name is Prakash Magan. I represent Rainmaker Hospitality, who is a management company here in Kentucky. We're a second-generation company, family-run. We currently have 24 hotels here in the Commonwealth and another 4 in Ohio. We trace our company's roots back to 1985, when my parents first moved here. Purchased a couple of hotels, one in Richmond, one in Georgetown, and we've continued to expand since then. Our current footprint goes from as south as Corbin all the way up to Covington, on the east side from Moorhead, and on the west to Louisville. And we're always looking to expand, so hopefully we will continue to do that. Wanted to begin by giving you a brief update about the state of the industry. Well, our industry came back from COVID much quickly and much more strongly than anybody would have ever anticipated. We're now seeing a lot of headwinds in our industry. As you can see by this slide here that's up on the screen, recent demand in the hotel industry has been very weak. The summer, which is by far the strongest part of the year, has been very flat and in some cases down in some of our markets. In Kentucky, we noticed that starting at spring break, which was, kind of the kickoff of our travel season, and we noticed a significant decline in Canadian traffic coming down. And through the summer, we've noticed a pullback in U.S.-based businesses and families just not making the travel that they've been making over the past few years. Next slide. And this next slide, again, we've kind of talked about this, other panelists have mentioned, we're seeing a lot of the same pressures on our business that other industries are seeing as well. We're seeing our vendors pass on pricing increases, partly due to tariffs, partly due to tight labor. Also, inflation is, obviously on everybody's mind. And one of our biggest expenses is debt. And the interest rate environment has changed dramatically over the past 24 to 36 months and has made borrowing costs very significant. Construction costs are really kind of the same way. New construction hotels, ones that maybe we built 6-7 years ago, are up 30 to 40% in cost if we were to recreate the exact same project today. Next slide. And this next slide just kind of shows, just a summary of what's going on in our industry. We're in this perfect storm of weakening demand, rising costs, and what we're going to have to do is work together to make sure we can weather this storm and come out, as strongly as possible on the other end. One of those ways that I wanted to mention is advertising. On a national level, our franchise brands do a very good job of scratching the itch of consumers to travel. But when we have to take over from there, we rely on the local experiences that we have to offer here in the Commonwealth. That's one of the reasons that the state transient tax is so vital to our industry, and we want to make sure that that funding continues to support our local tourism offices. We need to make sure that they have all of the resources necessary to show off the attractions and natural resources in our state. Our teams at the hotels regularly share with us stories of interacting with guests, making sure that any visitor that's coming through our hotels knows exactly what's in the area, and hopefully we can get them back for a return visit if they're not visiting those attractions on the current trip. I want to give a huge kudos to our local tourism offices across the state, because we work with all of these offices very closely where our hotels are located. And again, they are funded in part by this 1% tourism transient tax, and we want to make sure that that is protected at all costs for our industry.
Thank you, Prakash. I want to piggyback, thank you. I want to piggyback off of some of his comments about the 1%. And being a local tourism director, I feel like we have a promise to our hoteliers, and I feel like the legislature has a promise too, that they're collecting these 1% funds, and that is going to our state Department of Tourism, which in turn is helping us market our state. And we have a promise to them that we're going to use those funds in a way that's going to bring visitors through their door. And that's basically what we do every day. I was just at the Kentucky League of Cities conference, and I got to tell people, I feel like as tourism commissioners or tourism professionals, we have one of the greatest jobs in the Commonwealth, is I get to be a storyteller. And every day I get to tell a story about a place that I absolutely love. And it's wonderful to see our Commonwealth and our cities through our visitors' eyes, because 90% of the time they are happy. They are not an unhappy constituent that's calling you with a problem. They are absolutely in love with our state and in love with what we have to offer. As tourism commissions, we are an industry that works very collaboratively. We partner together any chance that we get, and a lot of my partners are behind me today from Frankfort, Georgetown, and Somerset. And even though sometimes we're competitors, we try to find ways that we can work together. And one of those ways is there are 9 tourism regions in the state of Kentucky. And the Bluegrass region is the region that I am in. And thank you to those wonderful ARPA dollars that you all let us have. We did a campaign which was called the Joyride campaign. And what we did in our region is we got together and we thought about what are some of the fun things that you did as a child while you were traveling. And it was the thought of getting back in the car and just going for a joyride when we didn't have Google Maps and you didn't have an iPhone telling you where to go and your dad made a wrong turn and you ended up somewhere and you absolutely had the best time. And what we did was really try to hone in on that. We had classic cars. I think you all have some postcards in front of you. You have some different designs, but we took our 15 county region and we came up with what are the very best things that you can learn on these back roads of Kentucky. And that campaign, we had 24 million impressions. We had almost 70,000 new visitors to our site, and it was something that we were incredibly proud of. We had almost 24 million total impressions, 13 million video views. We had a great video that was on YouTube that everybody got to see. 76,000 new visitors, 4,000 social media engagements. So as tourism professionals, we love to see those numbers and we love to dive into that. But after the ARPA money, we spent all of that. We decided as a region, we want to keep this going. So we are all working together. All of those communities are paying in together to keep this campaign going. And we really enjoy being able to market ourselves as a region, because a lot of times if that visitor comes to Richmond and I'm able to tell him or her about Georgetown, Lexington, Danville, I'm able to keep those people in our state a lot longer if it was just Richmond all by themselves. And then when we're talking about how our offices are funded, and I'll show you a quick picture here of the campaign that we did. But when we're talking about how our offices are funded, we are funded through transient tax. So we get that from our hoteliers, from our bed and breakfast, and our short-term rentals. But one of those folks, Airbnb, they are not paying their 1%, or excuse me, their local transient tax. And that is something that our industry is currently in a lawsuit with Airbnb. And we are wanting those folks to follow the laws that the Commonwealth has passed, and ask them to pay their funds. In a city like Richmond, we have about 36 short-term rentals. Of those 36, about 15 of those are paying their local transient tax. So that's about a $20,000 loss to our tourism office. Another community in our region, Lawrenceburg, she did some research. They don't have a lot of hotels. They have mainly the short-term rentals. And she thinks it's upward of $90,000 that she's losing yearly. So it's really important that we work to get Airbnb to pay those funds. And then in closing, I say this to my mayor all the time. I say tourism is not an expense. We're an investment. We take those dollars, we stretch them as far as we can stretch them, and we get people into our doors. So thank you all for having me. And then I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Abby from Henderson. She is in New York City on a press tour. So you can hear her voice, and I'm going to share some of her slides with you. There she is.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for letting me zoom in today. Like Lori said, I am in the Big Apple. I'm with some folks from the Department of Tourism and some of our other partners, and we're hosting media today. So we have folks from Travel and Leisure, Southern Living, Today. So we're sharing the good news of Kentucky and hoping to get some really good stories so that we can continue to attract more visitors to our state. So, as a small commission with a limited budget locally, you all can imagine that trips like this and opportunities like this often are pretty out of reach. But our partnership with the Kentucky Department of Tourism gives us this access to audiences that we could never reach on our own. You know, Lori really talked about the collaboration with all of our tourism partners. And I would say that includes our friends at the Department of Tourism. The national media relationships, the large scale marketing campaigns, the industry research that is provided to us, it puts small communities like Henderson with small budgets on a much bigger stage. A really great example of this, I get so excited. Honestly, I kind of get chills when I talk about this. So back in the spring, we were a partner on the Small Cities Big Experiences tour. I think this was the second tour that KDT had hosted. And there's another one coming up actually next week in some other cities. So KDT coordinated with travel writers and journalists and funded the effort. And then once they came into our city, we of course provided the boots on the ground hospitality and the local flavor. Literally and figuratively. So on our tour in particular, these journalists traveled to 5 cities throughout Western Kentucky, small towns, where again, like this seems really out of reach for us to do just on our own. So we were able to host journalists and get coverage in markets like Chicago, New York, Memphis, St. Louis, Atlanta, and Milwaukee. And I'll tell you, I know that you all are so proud of the work that you do, and it's fun whenever you get to kind of bring that to your constituents. And we feel the same way whenever we get to give you all kind of a behind the scenes look at what it is that we do. So when we were walking with these journalists up to the upstairs of Cap and Cork, which is a local restaurant and bourbon bar, Senator Mills, my friend Robbie Mills, was leaving a lunch, and he pulled me to the side and he said, "Hey, who are these people? What's going on?" So that was really neat to give him kind of a behind the scenes look of what it is that we do. So what happened a couple months later over the summer, we had 4 folks from Cincinnati that walked into our visitor center and saw this story in Style Blueprint about Western Kentucky, and we had to come. So very quickly, this translated into dollars in our community. They stayed in a local hotel, they ate meals in our local restaurants, They shopped at our local stores, they filled up those gas tanks, and then they moved on to the next small town in Western Kentucky. So to see that effect, it was really special and really reminded us, why we put in the work that we do. So the truth is, our commission simply could not buy this level of exposure on its own. By working together under the umbrella of the state's marketing strategy, our dollars stretch further and ensure that every community, both large and small, can benefit. So tourism marketing is most effective when it's consistent and well coordinated. So the state sets that stage with a broad message, and local DMOs like ours bring it to life with those authentic, place-specific experiences that we know our visitors love. Ultimately, these collaborations are important. It ensures that visitors aren't just coming to Kentucky, they're also finding their way into our really small towns. They're filling our hotel rooms, they're supporting local businesses, they're contributing to those jobs that come from the tourism industry. And what I'm so passionate about, they're strengthening our local economies. So it's so important that every dollar that was intended for marketing is spent in that way. Every dollar that's siphoned out of that 1% fund that's intended to market Kentucky as a destination for visitors, it just takes away from opportunities that affect each of our cities and counties, both large and small. So on that note, I look forward to seeing what comes out of this media tour that we have here today, and sharing all of the wonderful things about Kentucky around the country and around the world. Thanks again for having us.
I've got to say this. You all just got to see and hear why I'm so proud to work for these folks and a multitude of others like them throughout the state. And it's not only the hotels and only the tourism commissions, but restaurants and marinas and museums and horse farms and on and on and on that makes up this wonderful industry that's so important to Kentucky. I want to wrap us up, and then we'll take questions, of course, but with two requests that we have in regard to a couple of points you've heard made over the course of the presentations. One relates to the 1% transient room tax. That's a statewide room tax paid by accommodations. It is the sole source of marketing all of Kentucky by the Department of Tourism, and a portion of those monies make their way to the local level in the form of matching funds. The request we have, and Abby alluded to it as did Lori and Prakash, we need every one of those dollars left intact with that fund to invest in representing, promoting, marketing all of Kentucky. So our request is that the General Assembly refrain from taking some of those dollars to fund individual and limited specific projects. We need all of those funds to raise the awareness of people outside of Kentucky as to what we offer, and to put us in a better position to compete for those visitors with other states. The second request is that it relates back to what you heard about Airbnb, and we request that you, in the upcoming session, disregard any attempt by Airbnb to change the local transient room tax in the same way that they have disregarded their obligation to pay that tax and have disregarded it for 2 years and 9 months. But who's counting? So with that, two basic requests that we have for you. And before I finish and we take questions, I just want to thank you all, this committee, the Joint Committee, and the General Assembly overall for being so supportive and so understanding of the importance of tourism. You're a part of the strength that we've built, and you're part of the future that we're headed for. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you all for being here today. We do have some questions, and we'll start with Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for the presentation. I may have misunderstood something, so I asked for clarification. Hank, did you tell us that was it a $13 billion economic impact?
The economic impact of tourism overall, and hopefully I did not misstate it, but it's just over, for last year, it's just over $14 billion.
$14 billion. May I have, well, what was that compared to last year?
It was, somebody help me if you, it was 13. Yeah, it was 13.2 or 13.3 the year before. That would have been for 2023. For 2024, it was 14.1 billion.
Thank you. And so my question is, I would go back to her. I don't think she's here.
You may proceed.
Well, thank you. You said the state of tourism is strong, and Mr. I think it's McGon, was that correct? You said that business is down. So how do you balance that out? Are people still coming but they're not staying in hotels, or are they staying less time, or what's really the issue there?
So our slowdown has really kind of started this year in 2025. 2024 was a great year. 2023 was a great year, but we're seeing things level off. And we just want to make sure that, as the economic climate gets tougher for everybody, we want to make sure that we're continuing to invest in our industry and giving us the best possible chance to come out with a recovery on the other end. Because, as all cycles go, we will have a rising tide again. So we just want to make sure that we're poised for that in the future.
That makes sense. I appreciate the clarification.
For the benefit of members and our in-person guests and those watching at home and even our minutes, just announcing that Kim King has assumed role of the chair for the rest of the meeting. So now we have Representative Wesley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick brief comment. I would like to thank Ms. Murphy for all she does for Madison County. She don't just have a good vision for tourism, but her passion. And we have seen such an outcome, just amazing impact over in Madison County because of that. And I just want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for being a wonderful supporter of tourism.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here with us today. As someone who gets on ChatGPT and asks it what to do sometimes, can you all walk us through kind of the role that AI is starting to play in tourism, where people try to find their destinations or their activities? And what are you all and others in Kentucky's tourism industry doing to make sure that those algorithms or whatever it is pointing people here to the bluegrass and we're staying with it? We're not going to get left behind by, I guess, this new age of technology we're in.
Well, I'm going to tell you a real funny story real quick. I have a lot of young interns that work in my office, and I give directions by telling road numbers. And they asked me one day, they said, how do you do that thing with the numbers? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, when you say 421 and 25, what does that mean? And I said, those were actual road numbers. And they said, okay, and we got a map out and talked about it, but it definitely brought to mind, they do not look at a map, it is all your phone. One of the things with AI, as you know, it is combing the internet for every bit of information that it can find. And that's why it's so important on the back end, on your local tourism offices and even with the state. We're spending a lot more time going into our websites, going into Google, and fact checking everything that we can find and make sure that's correct. So when those AI bots are looking and finding stuff, that they know what time the restaurant's open. Do they know what the correct address is? So that's something on the local level that we've really tried to make sure that the internet is as correct as we can help it be for when those bots are actually looking for those things.
Yeah, I had a comment on that as well. Actually, funny timing, because I was reading an article just this morning that 60% of folks who Google a question, now there's like the just AI brief at the top. And they're pulling that from our websites, but 60% of those people rely on that information and never make it to the website where that information is actually coming from. So, to your point, now more than ever, it's so important that we're getting the information on our websites and out there in a clear and concise way, but it doesn't change the need for us to be putting that information out there. So it's making sure that, we're in tune with what those keywords are so that the information that is coming across whenever you get just that little blurb response at the top of Google is coming from reputable sources like our local websites that, we all work to maintain as well as at the state level. So it's definitely on all of our minds.
That is a very important skill, Ms. Dixon. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. It really is a postmark or a snapshot of the time that we're living in, the keywords and the important terms included. I did not mean to interrupt you, Representative Moore. Did you have a follow-up or anything? Okay. Okay, Senator Nunn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Y'all might be able to, people can always educate me. I have a lot of blind spots, but my understanding about maybe the transient tax or the restaurant tax, and maybe it's the same for both, is the local tourism office has some discretion on how that money is spent and can spend it to fund some local projects. Is that right? Okay, so I do understand at least that much. Would there be any wisdom in giving the local tourism office more discretion on what type of projects they could fund? For example, like yesterday in VMAP, we heard about the local volunteer rescue service in Red River Gorge, and they have significant funding needs. Can't help but think that the local tourism office might be interested in funding some of those needs, because likely a lot of those people that get rescued by that service are tourists that are there rock climbing. But I think right now they'd be restricted from funding some of those project needs. So I'm asking the people who were there closest to the problems, closest to the solutions, is that type of autonomy or discretion, would that be welcomed?
I will tell you, a local tourism office, and Prakash is actually on my board. A tourism commission has, by statute, you have to have 3 hoteliers on there, a restaurant representative, somebody from the chamber, and 2 mayoral or county judge appointments. And so those folks get to make the decision on what to spend money on. But the majority share of the people on that commission are hotel short-term rentals. So when we talk about, at least the transient tax funds, the hoteliers are going to say, you may have discretion to fund something else, but at the end of the day, your purpose is to get folks visiting Kentucky and getting people through our door. So I think that's where you would have to, as that local commission would have to decide, does that feel right for us? And at the end of that, discussion, will that help get people through our door? Gosh, I don't know if you want to answer that as a board member of tourism.
Sure. No, I would agree with that. You've always got to look at what the ultimate the goal is of the Tourism Commission, and how that specific event or issue can further the cause of tourism for that community. So sometimes it's indirect and it's not completely clear, but that's why we have very robust discussions at our board, because we get numerous requests, and we always try to make sure that in the end it's going to advance tourism for our city and for our county and ultimately for our state.
Representative Lehman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the presenters. This is fun and exciting. I like this handout of the Bluegrass region, the 16 sites you have highlighted here. I noticed 6 out of the 16 are actually bourbon or alcohol related. We heard not too long ago from the tourism cabinet as well about how bourbon is one of the key pillars of the tourism industry, and I'm just curious, how important is it to you, to your industry, the distillers and the bourbon industry? Is there something as a legislature we need to do? I mean, it's not just the bourbon industry that they affect, and I'm hearing this in agriculture, and there's a lot of downstream effects. I mean, is there something we need to think about doing to either diversify away from bourbon or reinforce what we're doing with bourbon and help them weather this hopefully a short-term storm in their market? Or, I mean, if you have any opinions on that, I'd really welcome that.
I'll make a few comments. First, from the perspective of the bourbon industry, I would defer to our partners and friends with the Distillers Association and the distilleries themselves. But from a tourism perspective with bourbon, I'll answer and respond to your questions. The bourbon is huge for our industry, and but it's not alone. In that same presentation, you heard those other 6 pillars of the industry: outdoors and horses and music and arts and food. In terms of what's going on right now with the bourbon industry, I think it's important for all of us to understand that the good days of bourbon, first, they aren't over, and the main thing I want to point out is they weren't a fluke. It's not a fad. The bourbon industry is a signature industry of Kentucky. Is solid. It's a solid foundation. And like any business, and Prakash mentioned hotel business, there are cycles, and there is a cycle going on right now. From the tourism perspective, and Lori and Abby may want to speak to this, we're going to keep on keeping on promoting bourbon because the elements of it, the history, the culture, the food, all of the elements that bourbon touches are still there, and those people who love it and want to experience it in all those ways, they're still out there. So they need to be reached out to through our marketing. So some difficulties going on right now in terms of specific policies. Like I said, I'd defer to the distillers. But it is a huge part of Kentucky and Kentucky tourism, and I think will remain such, and we'll stay strong.
Senator Funky Frommeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So when I think about the Kentucky Travel Industry Association, I'm wondering how closely are you coordinating with our Kentucky state parks?
Very close. I'll speak for KTIA specifically, and Abby and Lori both may want to comment from the local perspective. We coordinate very closely. Commissioner has a spot on our board, an ex officio spot. We communicate a great deal. All of the resort parks of the state are members of KTIA, so they are. It won't surprise you to know that we believe our state parks are a key critical element of the overall tourism industry. How they relate locally, I think that these folks are in a better position than I am to respond to that.
In Madison County, we have White House State Historic Site, and then we have Fort Boonesboro, and those are huge pillars for us. And we see ourselves kind of as a local marketing arm for them. I would say at least 60% of the marketing that I do include our state parks because they are so important to us. Abby, I know you have a wonderful state park.
Yeah, I take any opportunity I can to talk about our state park. Similar to how we kind of lead with bourbon in a lot of our marketing at the state level, I lead with Audubon State Park when I'm talking about my local community. So if you have not been to Audubon, please come visit. It's beautiful. It feels like something out of a fairy tale. We'd love to have you. Our park manager there, David Miller, is fantastic. He serves as actually chairman of my board this year. I would say I'm in communication with the team at our local state park multiple times a week. We work so well together, and I think that's really the beauty of our industry. It's all about collaboration, and we have folks that really understand that.
Yes.
Just a follow-up to that, you mentioned resorts. So not every state park is included in the marketing, only the resort state parks?
No, I didn't mean to imply that at all. I just happened to mention that the resort parks the Department of Parks has had them join KTIA, but the other sorts of state parks and those installations, those places, they are very, very much promoted both by the tourism commissions in their areas, as well as certainly by the Department of Tourism as in terms of the overall marketing and promotion of Kentucky. That reference to the resort parks was only specific to our particular membership, not the attention that they get, that the others get.
So they pay the 1% transient tax?
Yes.
What they collect is pay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, a legitimate argument could be made that Kentucky is beautiful all 4 seasons, but we are entering autumn and fall, and I think a real strong argument could be we're entering one of the most beautiful seasons. Thank you all for entertaining our guests and making sure that they see all the beautiful sights and know how much we appreciate them being in our state. Are there any other comments or questions for the good of the group? If not, our next meeting will be October 20th.